Okay, thank you so much, everyone, and welcome. So my name is Noémi, and I'm a clinician scientist from Montreal. I work at the Shriners Hospital for Children in Canada, and I also teach at McGill University. And I'm really proud to present Tessah, whose work on her master's thesis is on arthrogryposis, and she'll be talking about her results for her thesis that she's submitting about. And so welcome, and we mean to have this session more interactive. So if you have any questions or comments, really don't hesitate to just shout out or raise your hand or whatever. If you have any questions, we're looking forward to that too. Okay, so what we'll do today is I'll provide just a brief background on some of the research projects we've been doing, and we'll introduce the research question and hypothesis for Tessah's project, and Tessah will explain the methods, the results for her work, and the discussion, so really some clinical implications and takeaway messages for you as well, and future research opportunities. So I won't really go into what arthrogryposis is, but I just wanted to share with you that we've developed a few years ago a collaborative effort. So we partnered with experts worldwide. I apologize that the text on the right is a little bit small, but we really wanted to develop a definition for arthrogryposis because the term was used in different ways in the literature. And so we partnered with geneticists, with experts in rehab, in pediatrics, orthopedic surgeons, and people with lived experience, so caregivers of children with arthrogryposis and individuals with arthrogryposis themselves, and really to develop a definition about what arthrogryposis is. So that work is there on the right, and it's been published in the American Journal of Medical Genetics. And what we wanted to do is to develop a registry, and a registry is really a platform for collecting a lot of different types of data. And we decided to do this several years ago. So it started off in 2017 with our hospital in Montreal and the Shriners in Philadelphia. And that came about because at some of these meetings, the first meeting I ever went to for AMCSI was the one in Las Vegas, so many years ago. And when we asked parents and individuals with AMC what they wanted, the answer was often they wanted to learn more about genetic causes and learn more about long-term outcomes in arthrogryposis. So we thought that the best way to do that would be to develop a registry, which is again really a way to collect lots of data in one area. And we started this back then, and it really evolved now. And we're really happy to have 8 hospitals now in the Shriner system that are part of this. And this is just a publication of our protocol, so what we are doing in this registry. And these are our locations for our current registry. So we have the Montreal site, we have the Greenville Hospital, and Lisa Webner is from the Greenville Hospital in Shriners. We have the hospital in Shreveport, in Chicago, in Northern California. We've just joined with the Mexico Hospital as well, and a few other hospitals. So we're really proud of this work. And these are all the orthopedic surgeons and the experts in rehab and our clinical research coordinators with whom we cannot do this work from all our different locations, as well as Dr. Judy Hall as an advisor on this project, and Dr. Phil Giampietro, who is our consulting geneticist who will give a talk tomorrow here at the conference. And basically what we did in our first 4 years of this registry, our main aim is really to understand the phenotype, which means what an individual looks like in terms of their characteristics, their physical traits. So for example, is there the presence of scoliosis, or is there the presence of webbing or extra skin over the joint? So this would be a phenotypical trait that's and then we wanted to map that with the genotype. So genotype means if there is a genetic cause, what is that gene? And basically look at what are the traits associated with genes and vice versa. What are some genes associated with the physical traits? So that was our overlying aim for this registry when we started back in 2019. But we also wanted to learn more about the social history and the medical history of our moms and dads and the child's orthopedic history, what kind of surgeries did the children have, and non-surgical history as well. And what we really realized earlier on in our first few years of our registry is that there was really a gap in the understanding of genetic causes, and children were not getting genetic testing readily. And so we were happy to partner with the Shriners Institute for Genomics, who provide us with whole genome sequencing, which is really the most sophisticated genetic test right now, and it's able to read the entire genome. And so we collect saliva from our participants and send those over to Tampa, where the Genomic Institute is located, and our expert at our hospital, Dr. Frank Rauch, analyzes this data, so we're able to share that with the families. So that's our third aim for this registry. We also want to learn more about pain and quality of life of our children that are registered. And so we collect several questionnaires from our children as well as from our parents. Whoops, I went a little bit too far. Sorry about that. So that was for the 4 years, and Tessah will present one part of that study. We are happy to say that we were just funded in January for a continuation of this registry over the next 3 years, so until 2025. And we've changed our aims a little bit to look into new questions. And our first aim is really to understand the outcomes post-surgery. So this again was a question that was raised by our parents and the adults with AMC. How do we know which surgeries work and when? So we are going to try to answer this question moving forward. And our second aim is really to develop a classification for arthroplasty that's functional. You may be familiar with some classifications right now for arthroplasty, but they focus a lot on which organs are involved or what are the genetic causes. There's currently no functional classification for arthroplasty, so that's what our work will be focusing on as well. And our third aim is really continuing the work with the genetics, and we're happy to start a new project using urine to use RNA sequencing, which is another type of genetic test to uncover how the gene works or what is the functional mechanism of a gene and how that relates to the body. Okay, so just some of our preliminary results. Until now, we've collected data on 398 children across our hospitals. And using Judy Hall's classification system, so on the left side, most of our children had limb involvement only, and about 40 or 50 or so had limb as well as other systems involved, for example, the heart, the lungs, the digestive system, and a smaller proportion had the limbs as well as the central nervous system involved. And we had about an equal number of females and males, and just some demographic data there on the right. And I'm happy to say that we've partnered also with international experts, so mostly in Europe, to really push for an international registry. So not just continuing the work in North America, but expanding the registry to include France, the Netherlands, Switzerland, Poland. I'm thinking what other countries, Spain. So we've developed partnerships with all these different countries. And what's really, really exciting is that each of these countries are led, their work is led by different experts. So for example, Spain, our contact person there is a pediatric neurologist who's really interested in arthroplasty. In Switzerland, she's a medical geneticist who's really interested in prenatal detection. So those are just a few examples of why these efforts are so exciting, so that we can learn and exchange from each other and pursue this work at the international level to have more children registered so that we can really have a better understanding of how these children are doing over time. And just one other project, I just have a slide on this one, and I just want to say that we're also working on the development of a tool to measure and to look at the upper extremity in children with arthroplasty. So this is again a project that's funded from the Shriners Hospital. And with this project, we're working with 6 hospitals. So the names of our colleagues are listed there. And we've completed this work. We've recruited 103 children. What we do is we've developed an incredible assessment, and we record that. So we record the child performing different tasks that are everyday tasks, including, for example, feeding a bead on a string and bringing a bottle to mouth, in order to really understand how the child is performing these tasks. And we've done a terrific help and calling on this project. And so we'd be excited to share this with you next year once our assessment is finalized. And the expectation is that then clinicians and surgeons can use that into practice to really look at which surgeries are effective for the upper extremity, at the shoulder, the elbow, the hand, the wrist, and also to inform function and how does the child perform activities. So that's our expectation with our project. Any questions until now or comments? So Tessah will continue now and talk about her analysis of some of the data that's been collected in the registry, and she's going to talk about the social determinants of health in that project.
It's such a pleasure to be here today. I'm so happy I get to present my research to you all. Starting out with my background, my interest in research are to understand complex factors, especially because real world exists with so many things interacting. Social determinants of health was the kind of interest for me to understand and really take advantage of the advantages of the registry. So, starting with social determinants of health, what are they? Has anyone heard of this construct before? Or this term? All right, so what they are non-medical factors that are known to influence the health outcomes. There are conditions in which people grow, are born, grow, work, and live, and age across their lifespan. And some examples of this would be income, education, unemployment, job security, housing, social inclusion, which is a great part of it, and access to adequate health services. So just to pose a question to you, about what percentage do you think that social determinants of health, of health, like which does it no? So, interestingly, according to the World Health Organization, social determinants of health account for between 30 to 55% of percentage, which is why we wanted to look into this construct and use the advantages of the registry to kind of explore this and see if we support caregivers and individuals with AMC according to their environmental and situations. So, using this advantage and then knowing how to personalize these relationships because of their registry, this gives us the opportunity to be the first study to investigate the impact of social determinants. So the objectives are to first identify in the registry a subset of data that represents social determinants. Data. Secondly, we wanted to registry subset of data to observe the strength of associations between health outcomes. So how strong they are at the same time. And finally, we wanted to identify what those factors are and how important they are to these health outcomes. Which factors have the strongest impact on outcomes of stress, peer relationships, and health perception? Would it be personal factors related to social determinants of health or health and so because the registry data and these research is really important and it can be a challenge sometimes to choose more specific and with registry data and give so using structural equation what associations are observed between the arsenal and it shows the trend of 20 registry. So our hypothesis is stemming from a couple different studies as well as the 30 to 55% range and environmental factors representing social determinants of health. Studies shown at the top. So, how do we explore this? First, we identified relevant data and then we chose caregiver and child data from ages 8 to 21 because this allows for all of the expected development milestones of ability and cognition, aspects. We wanted to make sure that children are able to participate. We actually use the data to create based on literature review, and then we identified them based on literature review and also experts and then we kind of found out the relationships we expected to see. We then ran the Bermuda, and then so when we're choosing our AMC registry data, the subset that we want to pick is something that's meaningful. So how is that meaningful to you? Secondly, we want the functions that are expected, because then we could use those data points to represent mobility outcomes and functional outcomes that are great. And finally, we wanted it to be statistically honest. That is all the fun research and research methods. And we chose a statistical technique that would really get at the complexity of chain relationships. So in the middle would be our subset of registry data. So the variables that we included here, we're going to start from personal factors. There are four categories that we're looking at here. So the personal factors related to the individual, age, biological sex, that kind of thing, and then including health condition as well. Then we have the environmental factors, and these are things like material and social environments inherent to caregivers, like their employment type, education, marital status, and living situation. And then the registry outcomes in specific functions such as physical ability, cognition, and finally, we related those to our ultimate outcomes. So ultimate outcomes are more complex outcomes that are essentially comprised of these intermediate here. So those would be represented by health perception, peer relationships, and stress. So we've got a lot of data to get through. So here are the personal factors in the environmental support index. These are all the factors that make up the category. And then for upper extremity and pain, movement, cognition, you can see we have lots of data to work with. And some of these measures, specifically PROMIS and EQ5D, are made up of child self-numbers. That's an important thing to understand here as well. And then we have the BFIM as well. If you can see it in the lower extremity here, BFIM and BFIM social cognition. Those are things that are actually reviewed by the parents and clinicians to establish those. Not as much of a self-report, it's more of a so, representing social determinants of health. What are these things made up? So we created here a statistical analysis that essentially ranks different categories according to more support or less support. So then we can see, according to those things, what leads to better support or what outcomes are from, I guess, less support or cause less support. So we have employment, education, living environment, and parental stress. So the reason we included parental stress in the environment is because it's an important part of any kind of caregiver situation that life can be very stressful. So maybe this would be something we could understand in that aspect. So I'm going to take a pause in the environment for a second. We're going to share a couple of examples and the characteristics of the children and youth that were included in our study. So the average age of 12 years old, children ages age 21, but 12 is great. Biological sex at birth, again, we had a great split, 51%, 48, which is lovely. And AMC type, expected limb reconstruction, and 17% limb other system, and CNS. And then the home residence was also one parental, the majority was one parental home, two caregivers. Secondly, for our respondents, everyone who responded to our invitation to the registry, we included overall of 189 parents and children. And of those respondents, 70% were mothers, 43% were employed full-time, 29% had a college education, and the next was 22% so great education there. And the majority, 60%, were murdered. So now that we understand the characteristics of our respondents, we're going to get back to the environment. So as we research question, what are environmental? So this represents the measure points that we use to ask that question. So in the first column here, you can see our personal factors. In the second, you see the environmental index and what it's comprised of. And then we're looking again at the intermediate outcome to understand our functionality. We can help answer that part of our question. And the ultimate outcome. So we ran the model referring to all the things that you just saw. Does anyone have again on if personal or environmental are going to be impactful. Would it be personal? Raise your hands if you think it would be personal factors. Right on. Okay, and raise your hand if it would be environmental factors. Great. So interestingly enough, there's a twist. We actually have the personal factors in our so this is an important thing to see because of course the impact of AFC is related to the individual. And that this is actually really helpful for us to know because now we can offer some clinical recommendations according to our, even though we hypothesized environmental. So when we see a complex picture, it can be sometimes hard to understand. So I usually put this together in many different puzzle pieces. Because when we have individuals, we are essentially created to type pieces and we have to put these things together. So now that we've taken it and we're just looking at what kind of puzzle can we see and what are those relationships? How strong might they be? So this is fun. Okay. So we have our peer relationships, which is comprised of a lot of different things. Then we have perception of the child, which is self-report of the child. It is how discerning the child rates of and then we have stress given. And that's one form answered on that details the frequency of stress that they're feel. So, what does this look like? So we're going to take all of those gray things we had at the intermediate outcomes and we're going to see how so here we see physical function is a really important component. The level of child, their quality of mobility, that kind of thing, like day activities. Those are really important to prevent stress and perception. Now, firstly, one of the most important things that we found in this analysis was one of the strongest effects was on physical function of the child and stress, which is really important because it shows a connection between those things. And as clinicians, we can then make recommendations to say, hey, if there's more struggling here, perhaps the caregiver also needs some support. And that's a really important component. And then for physical function as well, the physical function of everyday activities of the child really have an impact on how they perceive their own health. Secondly, we have the pain metrics. So how much we interfering with the child's makes an impact on how they feel like they're doing. And then connecting health perception and peer relationships is actually has an impact on both peer relationships and perception. And connecting to that as well as cognition. This was an experiment which was observed by the parent and a trained clinician to identify different aspects of cognition, such as memory, planning, and social relationships. And it's interesting because cognition really does impact the quality of peer relationships that are finally, interestingly enough, we have biological effects of birth, which does impact peer relationships as well as pain. So the report of some, for example, for sex at birth, the impact of pain was reported to be lower. And then for sex at birth as well for peer relationships, girls reported to have better peer relationships, which is another interesting thing. And then we have the last puzzle piece, which is the ANC type, which actually did show an impact on the type of peer relationship, So now that we have that, I'm just going to explain a couple of the specific ways that puzzle pieces actually look like. So for example, we're looking at pain or discomfort. So if you see here, there's different numbers here to represent I have no pain. So the higher score right here is allocated to I have no pain because it represents health being the highest score. The effect that we saw statistically was better pain report equals better health perception. That might not seem like a shocking result to anyone, but this is a really important thing that underlies the relationship is that, for example, if for an example of how this works, if you see I have no pain or discomfort. The child might be likely to rate as, I have good health today. That would be great. But in the case that the child also reports some pain or discomfort, we actually know because of the analysis we ran that equals in exactly 11 units of change, which is, again, it's not a surprising concept, but it is a really important specific number. So to the extent that it can change the category of from best health to less best health. All right, and then for parental stress here, we see the same thing. So if we're looking at these function scores here with the we've promise of our extremity and EQ5D, all of the scores were pulled together to represent the function. So the effect we had here was the higher the physical function, the lower the parental stress. Again, not shocking, but it's really important for us to know because it changes by category. So a 1 unit increase on physical function, the child is reporting better physical function, better eating, ability to be around engagement with their environment. Parental stress actually changes from, actually this is going to be different, but the better it is, you can see that it would change to rare categories. You can see sometimes the frequency, but if you reduce the functionality of this one, rehabilitation in the physical ability sense, that could actually have an effect of reducing the level of stress. So again, clinicians, it's an amazing thing for us to know. Yes. So it's not, so with what we just talked about, it's actually more on the physical function. It's not reflecting the health perception of the child. And that's another thing that's important to know in our mind. The health perception of the child did not impact parental stress. It did not. It specifically was put in the model first, but then it showed no significance. So the first research question we asked, put parental stress in the position of the analysis. We could relate, is parental stress impacting? That was the question. I'm so glad you got the question because is it impacting the child's perception? That was the reason we had this kind of model analysis is we can test one factor against and it showed absolutely no statistical variance. And this is why it's interesting that parental stress is actually as a result of physical function because the parent can't help but like the functionality of their child, but it is not parental stress. Right. Yeah, it's more asking about sadness and anxiety frequency, so I feel a little bit so it's one with 5D.
Yeah, that's a great question. So for that questionnaire, we decided to use the European measure of quality of life because we noticed that many of our European colleagues use this measure. So it's called the EQ5D. Like Tessah said, it's basically 5 items. And we had both the children report. So that's another reason why for this analysis that Tessah conducted, we used the children between 8 to 21 because we really wanted to use the questionnaires that the children reported themselves. And the parents reported as well. So we also have a lot of data still to look at from the parents' perspective of their child's quality of life. For the purpose of Tessah's analysis, Tessah used the child's report, and those were 5 different items. So one of them was on mood, and that item read, I feel a little bit, how do I feel in terms of my worry, anxious or sad? And those are really 3 ratings. So it wasn't an entire measure on mood, but really one item that is comprised of this quality of life measure. Yeah, but thank you so much for your questions. Please keep them coming. Thank you.
Perfect. Very good question, honestly. I'm so happy because even your question about parental stress, that was the question I was trying to ask. Because of course we're looking to support. The whole point of the research is to find ways to support the caregivers and children. And it's funny, the more that we tried to just focus on the child, the more that the parental factors kept coming up as something that's really essential. So again, I look at that as takeaways, but it's something we're going to come back to. The third important relationship was between cognition and diagnosis in peer relationships. So the effect of this in statistical analysis was smaller, but still an important thing to understand. So the lower the impact of AMC under the category that Judith Hall established. So there's three categories. In the analysis, we used two of them for one and then the other one and other systems and CNS. So we found that with the impact of limb movement, those who responded to that also reported having better peer relationships. Second, with cognition, that involves memory planning, social communication, that kind of thing. The higher the cognition, according to the clinician or observation, those reports were also more increased in cognition and peer relationships. So again, these are really, when I think about it on the outside of just trying to consider what would make sense. This all makes a lot of sense. But having this analysis say yes and no, for instance, does parental stress impact the child? No, which is great. And then on the other side of it, to understand cognition, oh great, if there's any struggles in peer relationships, perhaps there could be some intervention or some clinical questioning, which gives us a specific question. So, tell. So for social determinants of health, they weren't important in this context, but they could still be important. What does this mean for the clinicians and future research? So firstly, social determinants didn't show the statistical importance to our model that we hoped it would, but there are many variables in terms of the way you can measure it and categories that we can use. So perhaps we need to measure this a little bit differently. And also, the registry was not necessarily made to detect social determinants of health. Secondly, the literature shows it is important to consider the context of an individual's environment. And now we know, especially finally, future studies could include social determinants of health data points because they help us account for context-specific differences and see individual differences are really crucial. So for individuals with AMC, takeaways. So firstly, personal factors really individual, the individual differences are really important. Secondly, pain, mood, and physical function, really important. How the individual perceives their own health. So that's a really good indicator of quality of life. And again, the level of the line of inquiry that we can give to these components is really important because it means if there is a lot of pain, we should ask questions about that, how that actually feels for the child. If it's something about function, perhaps we need to add some. And finally, these were really important considerations in the individual's peer relationships. So again, just asking for relationships and for caregivers, one of the best things about this was more stress, lower physical function tells us the caregivers show connection with the physical challenges of their child, which is of course something that makes lots of intuitive sense, but our analysis really supports that. And this tells us that attention should be directed to caregivers, also require support in coping with everyday challenges with their child. The huge thing in literature as well is reported the caregivers also are impacted because of course they're in. So we want, and what this project shows is that we need to give more support. That's a great thing that's coming with it. So finally for clinicians can consider the impact of pain with ANC type and the level of function on perception, peer relationships, and parental stress. Secondly, parental stress is important, and we want to give some attention to the caregivers. We need to do that. So clinicians can ask caregivers how they're impacted, and if they because of course a parent might be very happy to answer that question. Creating social opportunities does promote better peer relationships, subject to it, and initiatives like CSI students and children, which these opportunities promote increased health perception as well, and also peer relationships. Future research studies and registries from this project, I think, should include some social determinants of health, just so we can understand patient-centered observation. Secondly, a quantitative study experience also keeping users of players and key stakeholders so research. It's really important to make sure that when it's meaningful to you and the outcomes that you experience. And finally, the so to that end, if anyone here is interested in the opportunity to find their voice, absolutely love to hear from you. So we can scan this sheets as well. But this is a really that captures the experience of which I think again, your voice that's something you answer. We would finally like to acknowledge all of our amazing funders at US Career Shrine and Miguel, and participate in helping us facilitate this research. So thank you to surgeons, and for this statistical analysis, we need to and if you have so one of them, there's many different frameworks to kind of understand because of course there are multidimensional factors that interact. So one of the constructs that we actually use is social deprivation. What that does is it uses essentially sets the standards to understand experience and health in different regions. So we were looking at doing this kind of analysis on registry data, especially because there's 8 different social deprivation metrics actually exist for like regional country, whatever the official social deprivation measure is. So we're looking to doing into social deprivation because it's essentially to understand all of these factors. There's predetermined weighting of each one. Looking some of the, I think in the demographic questionnaire for the caregivers, it was mainly related to genotype and then characteristics of the child. So I'm not sure if Dr. Dahan would be able to answer more specifically, but we didn't, I don't think we asked the caregivers if they actually identified that. But in terms of race, ethnicity, that kind of thing, that's absolutely part of social deprivation research. Actually, it's an important component of equality and understanding the different, I guess, nuances of this kind of research. So it's something that we would build into another study for sure, because actually the registry was inclusive of French, English, and Spanish, and open to every possible person. Correct.
PhD student. So we were interested about a year ago to learn more about the cost of caregiving. And the cost doesn't include only direct costs like monetary, but also psychosocial costs, which means how the caregiver feels, their experience of caregiving. So there's kind of two parts to that study. The one that you have now is the QR code, it's an electronic survey. So it's all electronic, and the deadline for that is July 19th, because we put that data in our ethics board, and now we can't keep it unless we do the process. So if you're interested, please go ahead and complete that survey online, and it is available in 3 languages: English, French, and Spanish. Within that survey, one of the last questions is if you're interested in participating in an interview. If you say yes, our coordinator will contact you via email because it'll ask you to give them your email, and we will schedule at your preference a time for a remote interview using MS Teams securely. And there you'll have the opportunity to share what it means to you to be a caregiver, things that make it easier or things that make it harder to be a caregiver. We've interviewed up to now 10, 11 caregivers from different countries in the world, and we hope to share these findings. To answer your question, we are conducting the analysis already for the interview, so we are interested in having more. So if that's our interest, please let us know. We'll be happy to schedule that with you. And I'm thinking that by the end of fall, beginning of winter, we'll be ready to finalize our paper. What we've done in most of our work is when we have a research article, we also summarize that in a brief, like a one-page summary as well to go with that article. So we'll be happy to share it with all our participants. And Dr. Bonnie Sawatsky has a research website for AMC, so we'll be happy to give it to her to share as well as to share CSR platforms as well. So definitely we'll be doing that. Yeah, thank you so much. Yeah. Any other questions or comments for Tessah? She used the really sophisticated statistical analysis, and the initial versions were with a lot of numbers and statistics. So this is a really great way of simplifying all this data, but we're really excited about what the data is telling us. And please let us know if you have any suggestions or questions. I just wanted to share with you that a few years ago when we presented our thoughts of doing a registry, some of you told us that it was important for you to include developmental milestones. So we included such a measure in our registry using the ages and stages questionnaire. It's called ASQ. And another student is right now looking at that data. So what is the development of infants and young children 0 to 5 with arthritis? So we really thank you for your feedback. We really take what you share with us, to heart, and when we can, for sure, we want to integrate that in the work we do. So really thank you for attending the session. And you have our email. Don't hesitate to write and to reach out to us if you have any ideas or suggestions or comments. We're really happy to hear from you. And we'll be here until tomorrow. So if you want to have more questions or anything comes up, don't hesitate to contact us and find us. Thank you so much.